Yo, what's going on, guys? Rome Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're looking at the Phase 3 Shadow Priest for Season of Discovery. This guide, we're going to be going over talents, runes, and rotation. So getting started here, let's go ahead and look at the Shadow Tree. Then we'll go over to Discipline, the Discipline Tree, and then we'll go over runes down here at the bottom. And then finally, we'll cover rotation. All right, the first 5 points are always going to be tough, right? 5 points into Spirit Tap. Unfortunately, this is not super good in a raid environment because we're not killing targets, unfortunately, during a raid boss encounter. Sometimes we are, sometimes you can make use of it, but you also have to get the killing blow on the target. So kind of hard to utilize, but we don't have anything else to put it into. We could put it into Blackout here, but you can't stun a raid boss, right? So Spirit Tap is what we're forced to put into. We're going to put 3 points into Shadow Affinity, reduce our threat by 25%. 2 points into Improved Shadow Word Pain, increase the duration of Shadow Word Pain by 6 seconds. Then 3 points into Shadow Focus to... I'm going to put 3 points here into Shadow Affinity, reduces the threat generated by your Shadow spells by 25%. 2 points into Improved Shadow Word Pain, increases the duration of your Shadow Word Pain spell by 6 seconds. Then 3 points into Shadow Focus, very important here, reduces your target's chance to resist your shadow spells by 6%. Then we're going to put 4 and only 4 points here into Improved Mind Blast. This is going to make it exactly a 6-second cooldown, which is 4 globals exactly. So the 5th point is not useful to us at all. So that's why we only put 4 points here. 3 points here into Shadow Reach to increase the range of our shadow spells by 20%. And then 5 points into Shadow Weaving. So your shadow damage spells have a 100% chance to cause your target to be vulnerable to shadow damage. This increases the shadow damage dealt to your target by 3% and lasts 15 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. Very important to put 5 points into this. 1 point into Vampiric Embrace. Afflicts your target with shadow energy that causes all party members to be healed for 20% of any shadow spell damage you deal for 1 minute. This is really strong in Phase 2, so it's probably going to be pretty strong here in Phase 3 as well. 2 points to Improved Vampiric Embrace, just going to increase the healing. 5 points into Darkness, just going to simply increase our shadow spell damage by 10%. And then 1 point into Shadow Form here. That's going to increase your shadow damage by 15% and reduce physical damage done to you by 15%. And this was also changed recently to reduce the cost of all shadow spells while in shadow form by 50%. So really helps us with our mana. The last 7 points here, we'll be putting 5 of them into Wand Specialization, increase your Wand's damage by 25%. And of course, the last 2 are going to go to the Improved Power Word Fortitude to increase the stamina that we give out by 30%. All right, that's talents. Move on to runes here. For the new rune here, we're going to be going for Eye of the Void. Call out an Eye of the Void to fight by your side for 30 seconds. The eye can cast a variety of curses on your target. So I decided to look up the specific curses this is going to put out. We have Curse of Shadow. Curse the target for 3 minutes, reducing shadow and arcane resist by 75. And increases shadow and arcane damage taken by 10%. I believe Warlock also has something very similar to this. So a Warlock can run, for example, Curse of Recklessness, and then you can put on your Curse of Shadow. We also have Curse of Elements, so it's going to, I believe, depend on your comp. So if you're running a bunch of Fire Mages, right, Curse of Elements might be better. If you're running a bunch of Warlocks and Shadow Priests, right, Curse of Shadow might be better. Then we also have Curse of Tongue, so force the target to speak demonic, slowing the cast time of all spells by 60%. The Void itself also does damage, so that's pretty nice. And I saw down here as well, you can also toggle which curse you want to go on the target. Kind of like a pet, right? You get sort of a ability bar there at the bottom, and you can tell it which curse to apply. One thing to note, if you are running the Shadow Fiend rune, you cannot have both Eye of the Void and Shadow Fiend out at the same time. All right, moving on to Chest Rune here. Void Plague afflicts a target with a disease that causes X amount of shadow damage over 18 seconds. It's just another dot that we're going to be putting out that we want to maintain at all times. On our Wrist Rune, we are going to spare. Periodic damage from your spells can now be critical strikes. Warlocks also get something very similar in their Head Rune, so it looks like Blizzard is trying to make our dots critical strike more to make them more bursty. I think just to try to beef up some of these dot specs. So it'll be very interesting to see how this sort of sims out over the course of this phase. In the Hand Rune, we are going Shadow Word Death. We're going to want to be using this on cooldown. So a Word of Dark Binding that inflicts X amount of shadow damage to the target If the target is not killed by Shadow Word Death, the caster instead takes damage equal to 50% of the damage inflicted upon the target. One of our filler spells here is going to be a Mind Spike. So blast the target for X amount of Shadow Frost damage and increase the critical strike chance of your next Mind Blast on the target by 30%, stacking up to 3 times. Then in the leg room, we are taking Homunculi. Break off splinters of your soul to animate 3 miniature copies of yourself that attempt to attack your current target with a mace, sword, and axe, reducing the attack speed, attack power, and armor respectively of any target they hit. So this is just simply going to apply even more debuffs to the raid boss. So Shadow Priest is looking like we're going to be bringing a lot of utility this phase through Homunculi, through Eye of the Void. We also have, of course, Vampiric Embrace we already talked about, and then Shadow Weaving. So looking like Shadow Priest is going to be in a pretty good spot this phase. And finally, for our foot rune, we are running Dispersion. Disperse into pure shadow energy, reducing all damage taken by 90%. You're able to attack or cast spells, but you regenerate 6% mana every 1 second for 6 seconds. All right, now let's talk about the rotation, and not really rotation, right, but more of a priority for you. So in terms of priority spells, obviously, right, you want to be in shadow form. That way we can get the reduced mana cost on our spells and the increased damage. Your main cooldowns are going to be Vampiric Embrace, Eye of the Void, and then Homunculi. So Vampiric Embrace here, obviously, we might honestly just put this in the maintain portion of this guide, right? Because we always want to keep Vampiric Embrace up as long as we can. It's on a 6-second cooldown, it's on a 10-second cooldown. There's really no reason not to keep this up. So going back to our cooldowns here, my recommendation is to just use these pretty much on cooldown as they become available. So going back down to maintain here, we already talked about Vampiric Embrace. We want to maintain our Void Plague rune, and we also want to maintain Shadow Word Pain on the target. Then as Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death become available, we're going to cast them on cooldown. And if there's nothing else to press, right, everything's on cooldown or all 3 of these dots are up, you're going to be using Mind Spike, the Mind Spike rune as a filler. And if you are for whatever reason, you hopefully shouldn't be, but you do want to wand if you are Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.